What words did people say about you growing up? Were you deemed unathletic, slow, the big one of the family, or were you too tall? Did you maybe grow up comparing your body to others, counting calories, idolizing beautiful women on the cover of magazines, the most popular magazines like Vogue, Vanity Fair, Sports Illustrated? My mission is to help high-powered women flourish in 8 specific areas of their life. And the area that we're talking about today is physical health. We're going to be covering common cultural beliefs that we've had about our own body and body image, what God says about our body, and common and practical advice on health, nutrition, and fitness. Here with me today is my guest, Amy Connell. Amy is a certified personal trainer who actually wants you to take a day of rest, a nutrition coach who wants you to enjoy dessert. Can you believe that? Amy founded Graced Health in 2016 to equip women with simple and grace-filled ways to take care of and appreciate their God-created bodies and enjoy a little bit of chocolate in the process. Amy is host of the Graced Health podcast and author of Your Worthy Body: Find Freedom and Health by Breaking All the Rules. She currently lives in Houston, Texas with her husband and her 2 always hungry teenage boys and her stray-turned-princess pit bull named Grace. Let's welcome to the show, Amy Connell. Woohoo! Amy, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you.
Thank you, Jolly. I am super excited for our conversation today. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Well, let's just dive into the book. You know, I love how you said in the beginning that our culture of origin really shapes what we think we're supposed to look like. And I love how you just broke down many common nationalities and what different women of different ethnic backgrounds said beauty is to them and what a beautiful body image is to them. I'd really love to just kind of explore some of the nationalities. So we'll start with the Chinese women. What do they consider to be beautiful? You mentioned 3 things that they themselves think is beautiful: their hair, their hair, their face, and their body. Their hair, they want it to be long, right, black, rich. Their face needs to be fair or shiny eyes and a small mouth. I thought that was so intriguing. I never knew that. And their body to be slim but curved. What else I thought was pretty cool was that I didn't realize that they thought like muscles and scars were actually undesirable. I mean, I can get scars, but I didn't know that muscles were undesirable for them because it's associated with like the farm life, being a worker.
Yes, it was very interesting for me to go through that process. And one thing I do want to make sure that that your viewers remember or are aware of is everything that I wrote in the book was the perspective of one person in that culture. So I sent out a broad like, hey, I'm working on this project. What culture do you identify with? And how would you define beauty as that culture defines it? And so I do want to just put out that qualifier that for example, the girl from China who provided that to me may have a different experience than someone else who is from China or grew up either in China or, as a Chinese immigrant or something like that. So I do want to put that out. But yeah, it was really interesting to me because basically her experience was that you wanted to have a body that showed that your lifestyle was not too difficult, and that you had that you didn't have to work hard manually in the fields, which is why they don't want muscular definition, and also why the skin, having fairness in skin was very important as well. So yeah, just learning different things like that, which is so different than particularly like our culture right now, where we really want those muscular, the muscular biceps and deltoids and booty and all of that kind of stuff. So it was definitely a learning experience.
I think when you mentioned the Indian perspective, you hit it spot on. Because as I was reading the book, I didn't even know that you put Indian, and I was writing what I thought, well, how I grew up, and it was spot on. In our Indian culture, fairness is beauty. Totally, absolutely. I remember, so I was born and raised here in the States, but they would sell a product in India and ship it to us called Fair and Lovely,
Oh
because
my.
I know you want it to be fair. And even, I'm one of 4 girls in my family, and we're darker. And my dad was always like, don't go out in the sun. So I lived in Florida, and I think I went to the beach like maybe 5 times in my life.
Oh, that's so sad.
We went always at night because of the sun. So it's kind of that ingrained mentality that we carry with us. And it's so true, right? We love Indian women. We love the beautiful eyes, the lashes, the eyebrows. I mean, it has to be on point, and you don't realize it, but you just naturally are wired to think like this.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And that is exactly what I was hoping the reader would glean, is whatever culture you grew up in, that is going to influence how you think of yourself, how you think of your body, and perhaps how you perceive other people. And so the challenge with all of this, between this chapter and then another chapter that we may talk about later, it is really to reframing our perception of beauty from what we have grown up with or what we have seen to what God says about us. And that we are all made in the image of God. As a white woman, I grew up thinking that you needed to be skinny, you needed to have long flowing hair, you need to have a big bosom. I mean, let's look at Pamela Anderson, right? In Baywatch. I mean, to me, that was what, women in my area, in my region, and white women, what we strive to be like. And I think that it's something that I really wish I would have understood or started being curious about before I did, which was, oh, wait a minute. Skinny white women are not the only, that's one, quote unquote standard of beauty, but there are so many ways that God represents himself through his image and his daughters and his women.
Yeah, as I was reading your book and just kind of comparing the different nationalities, I thought to myself, wow, it's so interesting, like how the Asian community, the African American community, those who are not necessarily white want to be white. And, then I think about my white sisters and I'm like, man, they actually want to tan and be darker, so it's like you've got these two sides and both want to be the exact opposite of each other, and it's just, can we love ourselves, love the color of our skin, love how God made us, beautiful, imperfect bodies as we are, and just do what he's called us to do. So yeah, we'll get into that. But it was cool to kind of see those comparisons and what each personality thought was beautiful. You had mentioned in the book, which was an aha moment for me, in that I had no clue, because I'm a medical professional by trade. That's what I used to do. And, we have this BMI that we are projecting onto every person that comes into our clinic as a primary care provider. And, as I would see so many different body types, so many different heights, weights, builds, I was like, man, this BMI doesn't make sense, but it is the standard. And for you to break that open and say the BMI was based on white European men, really like supremacists, I was like, what? No way. Please talk about that.
Yeah, it was really surprising to come across that data. That was a fascinating article that I read in Good Housekeeping that really broke it down. And yeah, I mean, with regard to the BMI, I think the problem is the medical professionals or the medical community is looking for a baseline. They're looking for something on which to say, okay, here's a baseline and this is what we're going to go through. And I don't fault them for that. However, that doesn't take into account the differences that we have in our build, in our natural muscular definition. And my problem with the BMI is it is only a ratio of your height and your weight. in fact, I challenge the readers in the book, just Google professional athletes with a high BMI. And it's shocking because these guys clearly are healthy. They just have a huge amount of muscle mass. Now, as someone who, I'm kind of a dense person. I see it in my two sons. I can see one is a lot more dense than the other. I mean, I just have a lot of muscle. My BMI is higher. And thankfully, I have a doctor who's really understanding about it and she gets it. The thin ideal in this BMI is rooted in something from years and years ago called the Quetelet Index. And it was developed in the mid 19th century. And it really was developed to study human traits, specifically related to crime and mortality. So this guy who invented it, Mr. Quetelet, he wasn't a doctor. He was like more like a statistician, and he was trying to figure out who the quote unquote ideal man was. So he looked at all of these different proportions and disease and all of these other statistical data elements and came up with this index, a Quetelet index. Well, that index was taken by the medical professionals in the mid 1970s and renamed the body mass index. So this was not designed as a predictor of health, because health is not just our size. Health is so many other elements like functionality and how's your mental health and how's your sleep. I mean, there's so many other elements of health. And what is our blood work? I mean, as a medical professional, you know that like your blood can tell you so much. And reducing it down to one number of a BMI really doesn't allow ourselves or our health professionals to take a holistic look at our body, at our health. And instead, it just takes everybody, regardless of their skin color, regardless of their gender, and breaks it down to one ratio. So the Quetelet Index is based off of white European men. Well, even at that time, there were more people on the earth than white European men. So his data didn't take into account anything beyond white men. And as we know, there are many, many different elements other than white men. So that's probably a long-winded circular way of talking about how this body ideal, this, BMI is rooted really in white supremacy and racism because it didn't take into account anything else besides white European men.
Wow. So what would you say, Amy, that should we kind of hold our BMI lightly, like with a grain of salt? Do we need to consider that, but along with the other factors that signify health? I mean, what would you say?
Well, I think, again, I'm not a health professional, so it's probably unfair for me to say definitively, but I think it's one thing that we can look at, but we should also look at the blood work. I mean, if someone's not going and getting their blood drawn, every year or at least every couple years by their professional, that's really a critical element because those are going to share things like your glucose levels, your thyroid functions, your cholesterol, your triglycerides, like all of these things that are going inside our body that we may not be able to see. So that is a huge element of what I think that we should look at in our health. We should also look at how well are we moving about our day. That's what I call a functionality metric. Are you able to do the things that you love to do or that God is calling you to do? That's something to keep in mind. How well are you sleeping? Sleep is so important, and there is more and more science coming out about the importance of sleep. And if we're not sleeping well, that may be indicative of something. Now, it might be something like you didn't eat something right and your stomach is getting back at you, or it might be that you've got something else deeper going on. And it might be something that needs to be addressed in our emotional health or our mental health. And that, again, the science is really coming out that those are so intertwined, and we can't just separate our mental health from our physical health because the mind really works through and communicates to us through our body. So I think that, yeah, the BMI can be one thing that we can look at. Sure. I mean, we have to have a baseline somewhere, but I definitely don't think it should be the only thing.
Okay. So we've talked a little bit about what culture tells us, what is beautiful, tells us what we should think about our bodies. We've covered BMI. Now I'd love to just talk about what God says about our bodies, what he says about body image. You know, in your book, I love, you quoted a scripture, I believe Mark something, I forgot exactly, but you said, you quoted what Jesus said, which is, 2 commands I give you: to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. You know, we as Christians, I know we have a lot of Christians listening today, we know that scripture like the back of our hands. I mean, we could say it in our sleep, we get it. But I love how in the book you focus on the last 2 words, as yourself. Amy, what does that mean? What does love, love the Lord your God first, love your neighbor as yourself mean?
That's a great question. I think the way that I would approach that answer is first defining, how does it mean to love others and to love my neighbor or to love my friends? Well, that means being available with them, being gentle with them when they're having a hard time, being encouraging, doing what I can do to help them along in their journey. And so if I take that and turn it around to, okay, well, how am I going to love myself? Well, I'm going to be gentle with myself when things don't look the way that I think that they're supposed to look, whether that is my eating, my movement, my body. It's encouraging myself. It's equipping myself with the things that I specifically need in order to thrive. And, one example I would give is I am someone, I can talk to a wall, and I love talking with other people, but in order for me to recharge, I have got to have some alone time. COVID was hard, by the way. There's no alone time.
Yeah.
And I really, and that was a really difficult element for me. So for me, I knew that I had to get myself away for a little bit every day and just recharge. So how that translated in my life was I would put my shoes on and take my dog on a walk. Now, other people can do different things, but I had to take care of myself in order and give myself that time alone in order to help my husband, who, because of his job, was working like 18-hour days at the time. I mean, it was bananas. My kids, of course, they were transitioning to online schooling. I mean, like everybody else was, and it was just different. Everybody needed more. I mean, we didn't know what was going on. Nobody knew what was going on. And so it just kind of rocked our world. But in order for me to be able to support my family the way that I wanted to support them, I had to recognize what I needed, which was just 15 minutes of time on my own to go forward. So I think a lot of it is, I don't want the as yourself portion to come across as selfish, but it's the taking care of ourselves so we can be in a state where we can take care of other people.
Yes, I love that. And would you agree that in order to love others well, you have to love yourself first? Because you will then be giving out of an empty cup if you are just expending yourself onto everyone else, but not onto yourself.
I think we can definitely love others on a bit of a reserve. But there will be a time when that runs out. There will be a time when that energy, that enthusiasm, that excitement runs out of taking care of other people, because we have not, like you said, we have not poured back into our own cup. I mean, there's that, it's kind of an overused analogy, so I almost hate bringing it up, but when you get on the airplane and you're traveling with a young child, the flight attendant will come by and say, if in the event of an emergency, place the oxygen mask on yourself before your child, which as a parent is counterintuitive to anything that you would ever do. But you've got to give yourself that oxygen before you can be equipped to take care of your child. So I think that it's just something that needs to go hand in hand. And there are going to be times in our life where we are taking care of others more than we're taking care of ourselves. I think that the challenge is that we have to balance that and maybe retreat, replenish, refresh, however that needs to be for us. We've got to recognize when we need that and then and do it rather than just keep going and going and going and going and taking care of other people. I think that sometimes we even see this, and in the church culture where women are out and they're running the Sunday school classes, and then they're running the youth classes, and then they're doing this, and and they're in charge of the funerals, and they're in charge of the weddings, and it's okay to say no and to take care of yourself, because you're not going to be able to do that with the kind of joyful heart that you want to do if you never take the time to replenish yourself.
Yes. And, I think that part of self-care is nurturing your relationship with the Lord, because Absolutely. Without him, right, we have no cup. There is no filling, right? We can do all these external things like take a walk, take a bath, but right, we are spirit first, and like we have to nurture and align ourselves with our Heavenly Father first in order to fill ourselves up and fill others.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. Of course, that's the most important thing that I should have said, and I didn't. And it's funny. So I have been recording the audio book for this, and which will hopefully be coming out soon. And I have noticed that I don't know how many times I talk about, like, if I don't fill my cup, if I don't have my Jesus time in the morning, I am just not the kind of woman and wife and mother that I want to be. And in fact, I said it so much that my mom read the book, and she was visiting over the holidays, and she said, now, Amy, I know your quiet time is really important to you. So if you need to just go away and spend time with Jesus, then that's okay.
That is awesome.
And it's actually, and then I actually was visiting a friend shortly after that who is not a Jesus follower. And she even said, she was like, I know your quiet time is really important to you. So if you just need to have some prayer time, then that's fine. And it was yes.
That is from them reading your book?
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
More boundaries in the books you read. The books you write.
Exactly. Yeah. Next book, I need to be thinking about what else I need to communicate with people. But it is important. And I think that, it's something that I do naturally. And maybe I haven't talked about it with some people enough, like the girls in my Bible study. I mean, they obviously knew, and I'll talk about it in various forms, but to put it out there and say, this is a really important part of my day. And I will, I really prefer to be the first one up in my house. So that way I can just spend, even if it is just, I get on the YouVersion app or the Bible app, and I watch the video and I read the verse. And that's it. Like, even if it's just that, I need that first sip of Jesus before I do anything else.
Amen. I love that. Amy, on page 40, you say that our bodies do not work for us. You quote scripture again, where you say that our body was actually given to us and that we are not our own and that we were bought with a price. What the heck does that mean? Because I'm thinking to myself, as a regular person, I'm thinking, I own my body. Like, my body is mine. I tell it what to do. I'm in control. So when you say the words like your body was given to you, it's not your own, you're bought with a price, explain that for our viewers.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. So every chapter title is a rule to break or something to break. And sometimes I knew what I wanted to communicate, but I didn't have a chapter title. So of course I would get on Pinterest, I would get on, the internet and stuff like that. And there was a well-known health professional who would say, your body works for you. Your body works for you. And we're basically like, you need to tell it whatever you want to do and go through and power through and, no matter what. And so I thought, that's a really good one, because my body, I am here to glorify God. at the end of the day. I am here to love God and to love others and to serve others and to show others the goodness and the grace of God and of Jesus. So yeah, my body is a vessel in which to be able to do that. And I'm here just for a short time, and then hope, God willing, my soul lives in heaven, right?
Yeah.
But that is, we are here for a purpose. We are here for a reason. And sometimes those purposes can be, really big reasons or big ones. And sometimes they're small, but we're still here to be able to live that out. And where I have really shifted is, instead of living out whatever I need to do with a killer body and six-pack abs, it's more living that out so I can show the love of God to others.
Yeah. And that leads me to my next point. This was, I think, the most favorite part in the book for me, where you said, health is just not about looking a certain way. It's not an adjective. And I was like, wait, what? And you're saying it's not about being fit or perfect or having that big butt or being a MILF like so many women want to be. It's
I was, yep.
but it's fluid behavior. It's a fluid attitude. I liked how you compared. You said, what if we took the word agape love, which means, I'm going to quote you where it says, agape love is unconcerned with self, actually, and it's concerned with the greatest good of another. I love how you said, what if we took health and switched the words out with agape love? And that health is less concerned with how we look and more about being physically equipped to love others, that we take care of our bodies so that we can do what God's called us to do. I love that. That's so beautiful, because that takes health, which we are so ingrained living in America and many parts of the world, about our body being an it, our body being an object, instead of, hey, no, our body is actually a vessel to be used for good.
Yeah, it really is. And I think too, the other thing is it allows it to be more fluid and to be something that we look at as more of a relationship, an action, rather than a physical manifestation of it. I mean, I have a chapter entitled, I can tell you're healthy by looking at you, which is really a fallacy, because you actually can't. I mean, kind of what we were talking about earlier. And for me, for so much of my adult life and even young adult life, health was, do I have that amazing body? I mean, that was it. Like, healthy equaled really fantastic body. And what I have been learning and what God has really walked me through is, no, it's about taking care of yourself so you can do what you're called to do. And that is where that agape love comes in. When we read about the different types of love that are given to us in the Bible, we see that agape love so many times, where it's a brotherly love. It's a love of someone else and caring for them and wanting them to flourish in whatever it is. And so if we can shift our mind from health being something that we can see or something that we look like, to being something that allows us to flourish, allows us to show God's goodness, to love others, to serve others, then I think that number one, for me, that gives me a lot of grace, because then I'm not worried so much about the physical aspect of it and worried more about, okay, what am I going to do today to help other people?
You give so many fantastic practical words of wisdom in this book. Can you just pick out 2 or 3 most practical ways in which you can break all the rules, break the fallacies that we've been taught?
Yes. Okay. Well, one that really seems to connect with a lot of my community is the chapter entitled "Walking Isn't a Real Workout." So this is going to get a little bit more in the nitty-gritty details of it. But for some reason, Well, actually, I think I know the reason, but in our culture of when you see fitness commercials, it is people huffing and puffing and they're sweating and
Yeah.
they're moving really hard and they're working really hard. And for some reason, well, because of that, we think that that's the only way to work out and that we have not had an effective workout if we haven't checked all of those boxes.
Mm-hmm.
But walking, and especially as you get older, walking is a wonderful complement to working out. Now, as a personal trainer, yeah, I want you lifting heavy things, whether or not that's steel or resistance bands or your own body. Like I want you strength training because it's good for you in a lot of different ways. But I also would love to see people embracing walking as a great way of moving their body and taking care of their health, their heart health, their core health. I mean, I talked some about that, about how beneficial that is to your core, to your mental health, to your relational health. I swear that one of the things that got me through COVID was going outside with a friend, as far apart as the sidewalk would let us be, and talking. And there's actually science that goes along with that. So I think that we've got to get past this mentality that we have to, see how big the pool of sweat on the floor can be, to, okay, I'm moving my body. And this is a really nice complement to that. I mean, if you like to get on that bike and sweat so much, and that's great. That's wonderful. That's great for you. But don't neglect walking just because you're not leaving feeling that way. So that would be one of them for sure. Another one that I think is important, and I touched on this a bit earlier, is this concept of being able to visually assess health, and that it's so much deeper than that. It is our blood work. And if you haven't, again, I'll say it again, if you haven't been to the doctor and had your blood work taken, now is a great time to do that. I mean, go through and get things checked out by a medical professional. Check in with your mental health. Again, the more I learn, and a lot of what I have been learning came through writing this book and having conversations on my own podcast, and that our mental health will impact how our body feels. So that is an important thing to do. How well are you moving? How well are you sleeping? All of these elements are definite indicators of health rather than just how we look. And then another element chapter that's really special to me is entitled "It's All About the Nutrients." And in that one, I really challenge the reader to consider that we nourish our bodies in a lot of different ways. And absolutely, we want to put God's food in our body so we can move well and feel well, and all of that, health goes, or is doing well. Also, we want to have that nourishment that fills our soul when we are eating whatever it is with our girlfriends, or we have that special dinner with our spouse, or we're celebrating a wedding anniversary of our parents or our children's birthday or something like that. Receiving the nourishment when we eat is so important. And that doesn't mean that we need to be going out and having ice cream and chocolate cake every night, but it does mean that if we're sitting around and digging into the ice cream with our family and laughing and smiling and enjoying the time, then that's okay. You're still nourishing your soul. So I think that's the other element too, that I'm really hoping that the reader walks away with, is this holistic perception that we can achieve health in a lot of different ways. And our spiritual, our relational, our mental health is just as important as our physical health, and the specific elements of carbs and fats and proteins and how many, and how long I worked out and what I did to work out. And it really, those all have to kind of come together in order for us to thrive and function well, so that we may in turn love others well.
Oh, I love that. I love that you give us permission to enjoy the special moments. I know that you're not condoning an everyday, like, cheesecake or sundae, but for the special occasion, not to shame ourselves and not to feel so guilty when we have that special, dinner with our husband, or enjoy that what is it, that Sunday you referred to in the book with your kids. I think
Right.
that's beautiful. And it's about balance and finding that balance, with your health. That's so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. That's been really important to me. And everybody, and I talk about this some in the book too, but I mean, I keep Dove chocolate in my house at all times. And I have a couple pieces every day, and I'm not embarrassed about it. I'm not going to apologize for it. I enjoy it. And, though some people would be like, oh no, that's too much fat or that's too much sugar, or whatever. But for me, that works. And of course, I make decisions surrounding that in other ways. But I think, I mean, you said the S word, which is so important to me, that shame. And I think that we have this tendency to shame ourselves when our eating or our movement or our body don't look like we think it should, or like diet culture tells us it should, or like the commercials, or the Instagram ads, or whatever it is. I'm really challenging the reader to release that shame and recognize what is best for her. How is it best for her to move? Maybe that is more Zumba and dancing or hip hop or something like that. Maybe that's just a lot more strength training, and then she's digging that. So, but what makes you feel good? Because if you're not excited, or at least not dreading doing whatever kind of movement you have, then it's not going to be sustainable for you. It doesn't matter what it is, fill in the blank, either, running or cycling or swimming or Zumba or strength training or whatever. If you despise doing that, then you're not going to be motivated to do that long term. I'd rather you find something, and even if it's just walking, even if it's just every day, if that's what gets you moving and keeps you moving, then that's what I want you doing. Ideally, yeah, we add in some strength training. Ideally, we add in some HIIT training. But if walking is the only way that you're going to get out there and move, then just walk.
That's good. I love that. You also mentioned in the book, and I want you to touch on briefly two things. Start with where you're at. What does that mean?
Oh boy, that's exactly, it kind of is from what I was just saying, but we all enter health from different perspectives and at different levels. As we're recording this, it's the beginning of the year, and there are a lot of people who come January 1st are like, all right, I'm going to get in shape. Well, maybe they haven't done anything since last April, and their body's not ready to move the way that they want to move. It's funny. I used to do master swimming, which I lovingly dubbed grown up swim team. So we would get up early in the morning. This is when I did triathlons. We'd get up early in the morning and we would swim. Now I am at best like a medium swimmer. I'm not great, but I could at least hold my own. And I remember one time we had someone new join in, and the way that they would get the pool was like lane 1 was for the super slow people and lane 8 was for the super fast people. So I'd made my way like all the way up to lane 3, and they put someone new in because they weren't really sure, in the lane next to me. And she went out and just blew past me and was super fast and came back, and then would get to the edge and just like sucking wind. And she said at one point, I used to swim in high school and I just can't swim like that anymore. Well, this woman was like in her mid 40s. No kidding. You can't. Like, just because you could swim really fast in high school doesn't mean you need to be swimming that fast anymore. And I think we have this mentality that, well, because I used to be able to do something, or because I want to be able to do something, that's what I'm going to do. Instead, let's just kind of take a baby step in and let's see where your body likes to move right now and where it feels challenged. And it might be that you're challenged significantly lower than you think you should be, but that's okay. Challenge is challenge. Another thing, Jolly, like one of the things I love to do is I love to sprint. So I went out to the track with my husband and my son who runs, and we were all kind of doing our own thing. And I said at the very end, I said, "Hey, honey," to my son, I said, "Can you video me running? I want to see how I look." And so he did that video, and I got home, and like the next day I was looking at it, and I thought I looked like Allison Felix. I mean, like beautiful and fast and light and bounce. And I was like, like super heavy, which doesn't really mean with start with you where you are. Sorry, I got off on a tangent with that. But you know what? I'm just not going to look like Allison Felix. She's a beautiful runner who's been doing this professionally for a really long time. And I am a 47-year-old woman who, you know, is just where I am. And that's okay. You know, my 100-meter time compared to hers is, I mean, hers is a fraction of that. And that's okay because that's where I am. And that's what I'm comfortable with doing. And that's what will meet my goals. If I tried to go as fast as her, well, first of all, I physically couldn't, but second, I'd probably hurt myself. So I think it's important to recognize what your bad body is capable of doing, what will keep you doing it, and go there and start with what that is. And that might be putting on a pair of shoes and going outside and walking. And that,
even if it's for 5 minutes,
even if it's for 5 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then also you say, be kind to yourself. Treat yourself as if you would treat your best friend. You wouldn't berate your best friend. You wouldn't, you know, necessarily criticize your best friend because they wouldn't be your best friends for long. Treat yourself how you would your best friends. I love that.
Yeah, that really came from just observing how we talk to our friends. And we are encouraging, we are positive. If our friend comes in and is like, "Oh man, I've gained some weight," what do you say to her? You don't say, "Yeah, you man, you really need to lay off the cookies." You say, "You know what? You're beautiful. You look great. You know," and
It's
you
okay.
know, you can, it's okay. I mean, just okay. So let's talk about how you can feel better in your body now. And why we can't do that to ourselves, I don't know. We hold ourselves to this standard that is just inattainable sometimes. And, you know, if we would just kind of use a filter of like, is this how I would talk to my best friend? Is this how I would encourage her? Is this how I would make her feel like the process that she is on is going well, even if there are bumps in the road, even if it is, you know, we have a down day or week or month. If you wouldn't talk to your friend like that, then why are you talking to yourself like that? Because our thoughts do matter. And there's a lot of emerging science coming out about that too. Like the thoughts that we tell ourselves will basically create ruts in our brain. And it's those easy, quick neural pathways. And so we get caught in that negative thinking rather than the positive aspects and positive words that we would give our friend. So yeah, I think that using a filter of what we would say to our friend, and she didn't even have to be our best friend, she can just be like someone you know, is a really great way to assess how we're speaking to ourselves and if those are life-giving words or if they are if they're negative ones.
Oh. Guys, you have to get your hands on this book, Your Worthy Body by Amy. I mean, just an amazing read. So many personal stories. I love, Amy, that you sprinkled these delicious recipes all throughout the book. So you have to get the book so you can find out what they are and definitely make them. And just practical steps, words of wisdom that are really just going to help you think the way God wants you to think about your body, your health, fitness, all of those things. So definitely go out and get this. Amy, can you tell me where our viewers can get this book?
Absolutely. The best place to get it is at Amazon, and I can provide you the link, or just go to Amazon and search Your Worthy Body, Amy Connell. It's Connell. And that's probably the easiest way to get it.
Okay, awesome. And folks, Amy's been so generous as to bless one of our lucky viewers with an autographed copy. So whoever is the first to type in Worthy Body in the comments down below is going to get a autographed copy by Amy. So thank you so much for that. And then Amy,
absolutely.
Where can our viewers connect with you? I know that you do personal training and you're a nutrition coach. So first of all, do you do online coaching?
Yes, I do training over Zoom right now. My availability kind of comes and goes depending on the season. You know, there's always, my goal as a trainer is to get you to a place where you don't need me and that you can thrive in the way that you want to. but yes, I do online training. And then people can reach me through my ministry name, which is Graced Health, GRACED Health. And I'm most active on Instagram. I do have the Graced Health podcast. We just celebrated 200 episodes. So there's a lot. I know it's crazy. A lot of different information. I have some incredible guests on. And then I also have a free Facebook community group where I will jump on Mondays and I give a movement Monday, just something of like, hey, here, if you're going out for a walk, here's a stretch, or if your back is bugging you, here's something you can do. And then where we also just kind of help each other out with things that are working for us, recipes, how we're taking care of ourselves and all of that kind of stuff.
Okay, fantastic. And guys, all her information will be down in the show notes below, including where you can get her book. So just click on that. And then also, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and let me know in the comments below. I'd really love to know how your culture of origin shaped the way you think about your body and what you think beautiful is. I'm just curious to find out. So let me know in the comments below, and also subscribe to this channel if you already haven't. Like this video because it will give me an opportunity to spread this video to people who absolutely need it. Amy, thank you so much for being here. It was such an honor and joy to speak with you.
Thank you so much, Jolly. I look forward to reading those comments as well, because I'm always trying to learn about everybody's culture of origin.
Well, I'll definitely forward it to you.
Fantastic.
All right, take care.
You too.